Cheryl Anne Scherer was born on August 19, 1959, to Raymond and Olivia Scherer. The beautiful red-haired, blue-eyed teenager graduated from Thomas W. Kelly R4 High School in 1977. Cheryl worked at Rhodes Pump Ur Own station, a self-service gas station adjacent to Interstate 55, to fund her college tuition. She had been there for 15 months and was a model employee. On Tuesday of April 17, 1979, Cheryl, at 19, was working a day shift when she called her mother at 11:20 a.m. to ask her about dinner and said she wanted to sew some clothes when she got home. Her mother recalls her being in an excellent mood. About 20 minutes later, Cheryl's cousin, Thomas Smith, drives his high school bus past the station and saw someone on duty, unsure of who was working. When he passed by a few minutes later, he saw a different employee, Debbie Hamilton, working in the office and stopped. Hamilton said that she arrived at the station to find the office open, and Cheryl was supposed to be there, but she was gone. Cheryl's purse and checkbook were still there, and her car with the keys inside were still parked in the parking lot. $480 was missing from the cash register. Investigators believe that someone abducted Cheryl between 11:40 and 11:50 a.m. Two witnesses recalled seeing a white car at the gas pumps around the time of Cheryl disappearing. Both witnesses were hypnotized in hopes that they would remember more details, but sadly they failed to come up with anything substantial. Despite air and ground searches, authorities never found any trace of Cheryl Scherer. Police conducted countless interviews and followed dozens of leads, but nothing came from this investigation, the biggest obstacle being the lack of witnesses, and no one had even seen the abduction. The gas station sat next to an IGA grocery store, which was usually very busy, but the store happened to be closed that day. Cheryl had recently made a payment on her car insurance, and police do not believe that she staged a robbery and voluntarily disappeared. In 1984, authorities suspected Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, who had killed several people across the country between 1961 and 1983. Lucas was in jail in Georgetown, Texas at the time. Lucas admitted to abducting someone off the interstate about 2 hours from St. Louis. However, Lucas was showed a picture of Cheryl, and he didn't recognize her as someone that he abducted. The pair were known to falsely confess to numerous killings. There was never enough evidence to charge Lucas and Toole in connection with Cheryl's case. In 2019, the Scott County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the Missouri State Highway Patrol dug in a field near a county road as part of the investigation, but they provided no information if anything was found. Cheryl's dad passed away in 2005, not knowing what happened to his daughter. Her mother is still alive today and still seeking answers. Cheryl's case remains open till this day. Jeremy Doland Bright was born May 25th of 1972 in Myrtle Point, Oregon. When his parents split up, Jeremy and his little sister Esty moved 100 miles away to Grants Pass with their mother. Jeremy and Esty were allowed to come back in the summer, staying with her stepdad, so they wouldn't have to miss out on their annual fun at the fairgrounds. Jeremy loved basketball and hanging out with his friends. In his spare time, he enjoyed drawing. On the 13th of August, Jeremy attended the Coos County Fair with his friend Johnny Fish. He called his mom Diane from a payphone at around about 4:45 p.m. and made arrangements for her to pick him and his sister up in Myrtle Point for the 15th. That evening, Jeremy went along to a tavern that his grandmother owned, where his stepfather was, at about 9:40 p.m., who had lent him some money for the fair for the next evening. Sadly, it would be a day that started out with so much promise, and soon turned into a tragic mystery that would span for nearly 3 decades. It was Kids' Day at the 75th Coos County Fair in Rodeo, August 14th, 1986. The morning clouds were burning off to make way for a beautiful summer day in Myrtle Point. Johnny Limbo and the Lugnuts were going to be playing a couple sets on the Midway, and Jeremy Bright, 14, was taking his 10-year-old sister, St, that day. Jeremy was wearing a black windbreaker jacket and white Nike trainers with red laces. After leaving his sister near the Ferris wheel, Jeremy went off on his own, leaving behind a promise to meet up with her around 5 p.m. And that was the last time his little sister ever saw Jeremy again. It was a different time in the world. Kids that didn't come home right away didn't raise the same level of concern that it would today. When St found a Myrtle Point police officer after her brother failed to show up, she was told not to worry. After all, he was probably just off with friends, was the thinking at the time. Not much was done the next day either. After the family contacted the police again to say he still had not returned from the fair. In fact, nothing about the missing teen even appeared in the newspaper until 5 days later on August 19th. A short news brief on page 2 that probably didn't attract much attention at all from the public. Before the Coos County Major Crimes Team came along, these kinds of cases were just handled differently in its jurisdictions. It was days before the sheriff's office investigators were even called in to assist in the search. On the 15th of August, Jeremy's mom arrived to assist in the search. When she went into the house, the TV was on, and on the coffee table was Jeremy's keys, wallet, and a watch that he recently bought. But her son, Jeremy, was nowhere to be found. The following day, his mother herself called the police to report him missing. Police thought he might be a runaway at first, as he was a teenager, thinking that he might have wanted to join the carnival and travel with them. And this was ruled out when the police investigations learned about Jeremy. They believed he wasn't the sort of person to not say goodbye to his sister. As the 17th of August came, 1986, the carnival left Myrtle Point, and it hit the town hard, with whispers turning into lots of different rumors. One of the biggest rumors being that Jeremy was last seen that afternoon in a vehicle with a young man named Terry Lee Steinhoff. Steinhoff used to be the babysitter of Jeremy and his sister. Investigators say that Steinhoff, while not a suspect, is a person of significant interest. Complicating matters further, however, that Steinhoff ended up dying in prison in 2007 while serving time for the murder of a Coos Bay woman 2 years after Jeremy went missing. In January of 1989, in the same week that Unsolved Mysteries aired a segment on the Jeremy disappearance, Steinhoff pleaded no contest to stabbing Patricia Morris, a 32-year-old mother of 2, multiple times in the throat, and leaving her for dead near the Pan American Bar in Coos Bay the previous May. A number of theories center around Steinhoff. Was Jeremy shot at while swimming in a pond, like some of the rumors? Was he drugged at a party, abused, or some variation of those theories? People started pointing the finger at one another, but Jeremy Bright still hasn't been found. One of these rumors was that Jeremy attended a party with his beer laced with a powerful and illegal drug, which resulted in Jeremy's death and his body being disposed of. Another rumor going around was that Jeremy was with some older teenagers by a swimming hole, and they all got in a scuffle, and it ended with Jeremy getting severely injured. Then those older teenagers took him 10 miles away to a cabin in the woods, where they tried to nurse him back to health but failed, and Jeremy died, so they buried him in his shallow grave. Rumors. Yes, the cabin and around the cabin was checked. Today, Jeremy's mom, Diane, and St, his sister, now live in Washington and are watching over St's growing family carefully. Jeremy's mom, Diane, says today, "Of course I've got hope. We hear all the time of miraculous things happening. Honestly, I don't know what happened. I can't even imagine. With no starting point, there's no places to go. I still have nightmares about what could have happened, but I just hope it didn't. The local detectives walk past a picture of Jeremy in their office every day, making sure the case stays at the front of their thoughts, hoping to finally bring this to a close for the family and giving them answers. They believe that there are others out there who could bring this decades-old nightmare to an end with a single phone call. I honestly believe there are people who know what happened, know where he is, and who is involved, says ST, his sister, today. I hope someday they will come forward and not let the fear of those involved keep them from doing what's right. Jeremy remains missing to this day. It is one of Shreveport's oldest unsolved cases. It was 1971 in Shreveport, and David Yeager was close to graduating from Byrd High School. He had his senior ring and $200 in his bank account. He lived with his mom, Betty, who was a single parent, and his younger brother at a home on Lola Lane off Mansfield Road. It was the last place that his family would see him. On Saturday afternoon of February 6, 1971, David's younger brother said that David left the house on foot, supposedly heading to Centenary College, located at 2911 Centenary Boulevard, to attend a debate. The boy's mother was not home at the time, leaving David to find his own way to the college. According to law enforcement, this was the last confirmed sighting of David. David had just purchased his senior ring, and he was so excited, said his mother. He was flashing the ring all around the house, and he was so proud. David told his brother he was going to meet up with friends. The identity of those friends remained unknown. David was looking forward to his own high school's homecoming, and he reportedly had a new girlfriend. The Archives Department of Centenary College confirmed that it was homecoming weekend, with a series of events held throughout the day. Those who knew David described him as a kind young man who steered clear of any trouble. He followed the rules, and he shared a close bond with his mother and his brother. In 1971, hitchhiking was a common mode of transportation, and David's family feels that he might have resorted to this method to get to the debate since his mother had to work. The distance from David's house to the Centenary College is roughly 8 miles. It would have taken him 3 hours to walk. David's family believes that he might have arranged a ride, as his brother recalled David's confidence that day. He was calm, and he had so much reassurance about him that led his younger brother to believe that David was going to meet up with somebody. Sadly, David never made it there. Investigators speculate that the route that David would have taken, Lola Lane to Mansfield Road, then proceeding northeast toward Centenary Boulevard. And it's important to note that not all the highways and roads on the map today were constructed back in 1971. David's cousin Kelly was told there was a little information or clues about his disappearance. She was even told by a detective that because of David's heavy weight, it's unlikely that just one person could have moved his body. Over the years, she's developed her own theories as to what have happened to him. In a strange possible coincidence, David lived down the street from a man who later became known as the Gainesville Ripper, Danny Rawling. Danny grew up in Shreveport on West Canal Street and later confessed to murdering a man, woman, and a child on Beth Lane in the 1980s, a street near where David's family lived. Years later, Rawling moved to Florida, where his horrific crimes of murdering and sexually assaulting 5 college students sparked national attention. Though the crimes were different and years apart, it always made Kelly wonder because David and Danny Rawling would have been the same age. She wonders if her cousin encountered the man who had become a serial killer who made national headlines. I was hoping that Danny Rawlings' house was on the other side of town, but it wasn't. It was between Lola Lane and that Centenary College, and it makes you wonder, Kelly said. Kelly was young when David went missing, but she vividly remembers how it impacted her family. David's mom, Betty, had to work at the last minute because otherwise she would have driven him to the college, and she regretted that. Betty was never the same after her child went missing. As a mother, my child is a part of me, and to imagine that my aunt lost her child like that and spent all those nights not knowing where he was. On April 27th of 1971, just 4 months after David had last been seen, police said a 16-year-old girl named Kathy claimed to have seen David in Columbia Park in Shreveport. According to her account, the young man that she ran into told her he was living in Natchitoches and was headed to New Orleans or Baton Rouge. However, the credibility of this sighting remains uncertain, and David's bank account never had any activity, $200 still remaining untouched. David's family strongly believes that he would never willingly leave his family. He had a good life and a family that really loved him. He was happy. While investigators say that they have excluded many persons of interest, including John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, and Dean Corll, the Candyman, and even Danny Rawlings, also known as the Gainesville serial killer, who could have crossed paths with David that night, but it is unknown. Shreveport Police Sergeant Richard Turpin is now the lead on David's case. He is hoping that having David's case back in the spotlight will help generate new information. Turpin says that trying to solve David's case is like putting together a puzzle without all the pieces, but he has vowed to never give up. Even after the decades went by, David's mom never declared him dead in hopes that he would be found someday. His brother later did, though, after she passed away. Kelly said that she is now doing what she can to bring justice for her cousin. They may find David one day, even if it's not in my lifetime. I want to leave some type of trail that David is found and returned to us. Kelly hopes that some information will come forward one day to find out what happened to David. We always hold on to that hope that David could be alive and living somewhere. We thought David could have gotten on that trek and realized that it was really far. He would have stopped at someone's house maybe, or gotten into someone's car with someone. That's what we thought. He just encountered maybe the wrong person that day. David Claude Yeager would have been 71 years old today. What happened to David? There has to be a missing piece to the puzzle out there somewhere. Somebody knows something. So, what do you guys think happened with Cheryl, David, and Jeremy? Let's try to be their voices, and hopefully their cases don't just fall back into the vault. Thank you all for watching this episode from Cold Case Vault. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. So I love you guys. I'll see you next time on Tales Told in the Dark.